Welcome to the Behind the Screens series on how to do MHPSS training online. And I'm Ina Susanna Akasha from the Reference Center for Psychosocial Support. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Shona Mahata, who is a design and technology facilitator, and we will be running this session together. We have another co-facilitator joining us a bit later. She's running late on another meeting, and this is Anouk Bosma, who will be with us. All of the participants today, you have all been in online trainings with the PS Center because we have developed and thought about how to develop online trainings. So this episode and the others in the series are for adult learners. And what we also do is we do a lot of practical exercises. We're also going to do that today. And we have the video on, and this may be difficult for somebody. However, this is what we have chosen now. There will be other ways of doing online trainings. First episode today is practice what you preach. So we are going to try to do that. The next that's coming up is planning a workshop or a training. And the third one is on how to integrate technology into your training, and that covers going up to 10-day trainings. We have the plan. I'm just going to go over the plan. So first of all, for today, we are going to talk about the Hotfalls Principles, and we're going to say how can we apply the Hotfalls MHPSS principles for going online. We will discuss the challenges that we have faced and that you are facing when you have gone online or will go online. We will talk about differences between superficial and deep learning, and finally do exercises on how to engage participants. And now I'm so lucky that you're here with me today. So I'm gonna ask you to present yourself. And I would like you to say your name and your position and which organization you come from. And as you can see here, I want you to be brief. And I have put a sign here. This is 2 fingers. They are getting closer to one another. And you know that when we do this, it means, make it short so it's not the life story. It is your name, position, and your organization, please. And I'm going to throw a ball, imaginary ball. So I'm going to throw it at one of you, and you have to throw it at somebody else. One more thing, when you do that, I have a list of names. So whenever we take a round, I can be sure, I can tick you, so I'm sure if I have a large group of participants that I have ticked off everybody. It's quite embarrassing to be the third time you have to say, you forgot me and you're in an online training. So this is a very helpful tool, actually. So I'm going to throw the ball, and I'm going to throw the ball to Evita. Would you present yourself, please? Unmute and present.
Yes, my name is Evita. I'm working as a first aid provider, trainer, and also event coordinator, and I'm from Latvian Red Cross. And this ball I throw to Fred is correct.
Thank you very much, Evita. Hi, everyone. I'm Fred Morales. I'm the psychosocial support focal point of the Philippine Red Cross. And I'll throw this ball to Krisa.
Thank you, Fred. My name is Krisa. I work for Hellenic Red Cross as a nurse, as a hygiene promoter, and CAS officer, multiple tasks. I'll throw the ball to, sorry, I'm not sure if I read correct your name. Is Beer?
Sure, yes. Thank you. My name is Veerle, and I work for the Netherlands Red Cross. I'm a social worker, and I currently work for them as a portfolio officer for the Caribbean branches that the Netherlands Red Cross has. And I'm not sure, but I think I can throw the ball to Solvita. Are you ready? There's a ball coming your way. Perfect. Yeah, you've done it before. Great.
Can you repeat the questions, please?
Yeah.
You have to introduce yourself and just name, position, and the organization you're from. A short, brief introduction.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Solvita and I am from the Latvian Red Cross. I've been here for 5 years as an assistant of head of the public relations and international cooperation program. Yes. And what I'm doing in the Red Cross, I am working with our homepage and Facebook pages and all the content and informative materials and designing them, and yeah. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sovita. And now we're just going to do, I know the old gestures, so you remember that. So we're going to shortly do appreciation. So you're going to do it along with me. You remember? Then pause. Say yes. No. Pred, I don't see your hands going up. Question. And then I can't hear you. Short quiz, pause. Appreciation. Question. Oh no, people are missing. Can't hear you. There you go. So this is just so that you don't have to mute and unmute yourself all the time throughout the training. Okay. Now we're actually going to kickstart ourselves in terms of what our journey was. So we at Red Cross, we really started this in June of 2020, doing a lot of these online trainings. And since then, I personally have done trainings, and then E has done so many more amazing webinars and short series as well, along with these trainings. So in the process, we did have like a lot of challenges that we had come across. And first, we're really going to talk about them in terms of how we navigated through these challenges, some of them. And we also want to hear from you what are the issues and challenges that have come up for you as you started thinking about doing these trainings online and having, putting together maybe longer trainings. And one of the prominent models that we're using in this process is the Hotfalls Principles. What we did was kind of think about our challenges, use this model to kind of categorize them in different sectors so that we understand better what is the issue at hand. And I'm going to turn it over to Ia to speak a little bit about the Hotfalls Principles.
So I'm just going to show you the principles, and actually it's based on a lot of research into what works to prevent trauma in the immediate and during and in the immediate phases of disasters. And this is a model of them. This is not something the authors themselves use, but it's just to make it easy to understand and remember. We have 5 principles. Promoting a sense of safety is basic, number 1. The next one is being able to calm yourself and others. It's called calming. There's more to it than that. And then you have self and community efficacy and connectedness. And this all comes to hope. And in the trainings, we worked a lot because we have done training together on mental health and psychosocial support in emergencies. So if I show you this model, if I do it right now, you can either make a drawing, as I saw some of you were doing, or maybe you have a printout, so you could start noting, and then we can discuss. So first of all, safety. When we go online, it's quite a different approach to safety because we're not in the same room. We can't control what is going on. We are actually working from home, maybe. We are not in a professional space. So we need to think a lot about how to make it safe. But we also need to think about how to make it safe in the way that people want to be engaged, so that your participants or our participants, they feel they can be brave, they can make mistakes, they can be innovative. Because remember, innovation is coming out of experimentation. So you need to be able to say something stupid, make a mistake. So you need to create a safe environment. Second, calming. we work a lot about having time during the training to do calming activities, and also know and be aware of how we can calm ourselves. One thing that that I personally like a lot is to just imagine that you're using soap bubbles, so we can take a deep breath. We can all take a deep breath right now, so we can take a deep breath in. And have a really long, relaxing out breath. Not only with children, it works with adults and olders as well. Connectedness, self and the efficacy. So we need to design the training in a way that people feel that they gain competencies. So they need to be able to go out and practice what they have learned afterwards. So what we do is we do a lot of role plays, we do scenarios, so that you actually have so that you're able to use what you've learned afterwards. Connectedness. We also want to, and I'm just connecting, as I say, connectedness. My co-facilitator, Anouk Bosma, that I have already introduced, who came late because of another engagement, is joining us. Thank you. We'll come back and introduce you in a little while. And one thing that we notice, and the reason we ask people to go online with their camera on, is that once we can see each other, we are connected. So once we see each other, I noticed that when we all came online, we start to have these emotions. Oh, so nice to see you again. We have the oxytocin, the feel-good hormone going. So connectedness, attachment that we build in training is really important. And we do that in many different ways. Hope. It's not only the last principle, but you could say that everything here will lead to hope. But we can foster hope in many other ways. And in this context of the online training, I like to connect it to transfer, the ability to be able, that you hope as a participant that you will be able to use what you have learned in real life. You have been in mental health and psychosocial support in disasters training. So we hope, the hope is that you know, because you have practiced, for instance, an assessment interview, that you can go out and do assessments in MHPSS after the trainings. So this is how these principles come together. But as I said, there's much more to them. And it's quite a dense theory now. You just got a brief glimpse of it. So let's hear from you. Any thoughts about how these principles also go into online training?
Or actually, yeah, I have an idea. How about we start off with a small exercise? So
Let's do that.
Do is since you already have the drawing or the printout, as we talk about the challenges that we've come across, we're gonna like sort of map it into Hotfalls Principles. And Anouk also has a beautiful drawing there ready for us to start populating. So Anouk, actually, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and kickstart us off into the small exercise? Can you tell us, when you first heard that you were going to do an online training, what were the things that really popped up in your mind? What was your first response, and maybe the issues that you started thinking of and coming across?
Thank you, Shona. Yeah, I think quite a few of you know me already from an online training, actually. My name is Anouk Bosma. I work with Ea in the PS Center as an MHPSS technical advisor. And Ea and myself and Shona, and many of you have done the PSS and emergencies training last fall for the very first time online. And that's the first time I heard I was going to do an online training. And I think I was mostly excited because I'd never done an online training before. And I was just curious how to see what I would learn from that experience. And also how you can be creative and flexible when you're in an online environment, and how you can connect still to people. And if I'd have to connect it to the Hotfalls Principles, I would say trying to make people feel safe in an online training environment and calm, while making them enthusiastic about the training you're doing. I find quite so the engagements, perhaps, or the self and community efficacy, perhaps as well. I find quite important to include in the exercises.
Right. And before we go on, Shona, can we just ask how many of you have actually done online training so that we have a mapping of that? So could I ask you to raise one finger if you have been in an online training, which you have, and you have done it? Two fingers if you have been in an online training and you haven't done one. Ah, cool. Thank you. So we would like to, yeah. So chip in whenever you have the chance. Thank you. Shona, over to you.
Pred, do you want to share a little bit about, I know you conducted a number of webinars in the process. Can you maybe walk us through some of the issues and challenges that came up while doing those webinars?
Actually, at first, we are very much skeptical about conducting orientation or this kind of webinars online, especially that the concept of mental health and psychosocial support is not easy to disseminate or to teach, for example. So we just tried our best to initiate different webinars on mental health and psychosocial support. And I guess what I can say about the challenges are maybe challenge on how are we going to deliver the same let's say the same standard that we are using in terms of conducting the face-to-face training. And I guess there's still a big difference because we are not together in the same room, although yes we can see each other, but the feeling of having a face-to-face interaction is very much different from seeing each other online. I guess that's the only challenge that we experience.
Yeah. Right.
Mute.
So thank you for sharing that, Fred. Evita, you conducted a first aid theory session online, and you mentioned it was quite challenging. Can you talk a little bit about what are the challenges that came up for you?
Yes, the most challenging factor in this first aid training in online for me is how to make such creative training that everybody can actually use, because our age gap for this training may be really big. There can be youth people and there can be also elder people. And when you say that, okay, we can, I don't know, make some Kahoot or some other tools, then some of them, okay, yeah, it's fine, and they understand what you think. And some maybe just don't understand how to mute and unmute their microphone. And then you have some problems, and you need really good yourself knowledge how to manage these tools and how to say what can we do in this situations and what can we don't. So for me, it's this big challenge how to make online training that can use different peoples in different age groups.
That is very interesting, and we'll talk more about that shortly. I really wanted you to share your experience about conducting trainings both for Red Cross and your independent practice on social justice. Can you tell us about, and you also mentioned you use Mural or Micro in the process, so can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Maybe what was interesting for me is to go online is to actually see the connectedness. And what I've noticed with my colleagues with whom I would organize the trainings is that they would take the preparation much more serious. Therefore, the outcome of the meeting was all of a sudden much better, actually, because they felt, oh, now we're online, so we really need to ensure that we send all the documents up front and, and that we have everything clear. So for us, it was so far a very good experience. And I really like the addition of Mural, which is actually what I've learned from you from the PS Center, where you can have it visual and people are working on the same board. And I think that helps for so many different reasons. Also the connectedness, maybe, yeah. in that sense, also seeing what others are doing, what others are learning, and also being able to work instead of just looking at a screen. So yeah, that's very helpful. I think this neural, yeah, how do you call it, software?
Yeah. So yes, we're actually going to look at the mural board in a short while. Before Krissa and Sowita, did you want to add something? Okay. Krissa, I see you unmuting.
Yes, yes. I want to say that I was very impressed from the last training. I had the luck to be with you. I was very impressed with the mural because in the past, the last 4 years in Greece, Hellenic Red Cross with IFRC implemented many different trainings. And it was the first time I did an online, and it was so impressive to me that mural and all this job you did with sharing us in groups two person or more persons in rooms. Yes, in rooms. It was very similar to the real trainings. Even the post-it, I was impressed with the post-it, with the comments or with the, yes, it was amazing. And thank you very much for this training opportunity.
That is awesome. Thank you, Krissa.
And also, I felt very comfortable, even if sometimes I had problems with my
problems with my internet.
Internet, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We lost you for a second, Krissa.
Krissa, I think she's still stuck in transition. Okay. So we will start off with the mapping. I know you already did in person, and since we are talking about mural, let's actually bring that up. So we do have this also in mural. So people just start unmuting yourself and telling us small things that we could populate here. And among all the challenges that you just mentioned. Anouk, do you have a few for us?
Yeah. I think the safety is important, especially if you ask people to practice certain mental health and psychosocial support skills. If they're in breakout rooms, that they feel they're in a safe environment where it's safe practice, and that's not, if you record it, for instance, that you share how you're going to share that recording and they don't feel so vulnerable testing out their skills.
Anybody else who has got anything for safety, please mention it.
I think maybe what's important also introducing all the members, just to make sure that we know whoever's on the call, because sometimes there are so many people and you have no idea who's actually listening, for example.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that definitely ties into connectedness, I would say. And also changing the names on Zoom, because a lot of times you log in from maybe a computer that your team is using, and it might have something more generic, but to personalize it, we could have change your Zoom names and just log in a little bit early so that you can talk to the people and get a feel who they are.
That also relates to safety when you log in before, because then you get to practice small talk, which is, you know, as we talk about small talk, it's actually the binding of the social, it's the social glue, that small talk. So it is quite important that the facilitators are always there ready a quarter of an hour before participants. Never underestimate small talk. Other points? Calming? Anybody?
I guess for me, for calming, it's important to have short breaks or some sort of calming exercises, because sometimes if we're going to have like 5 to 8 hours straight training, it is very exhausting. So yeah, I guess that's important as well.
So right, and that tends to be overlooked. we would actually say, and we don't always practice what we preach, I'm so sorry, but we would say every hour you need 10 minutes break. And you need to be able to have these comfort breaks, go for coffee, tea, water, whatever. Yeah. And other points for the efficacy for hope?
Anouk.
Yeah, the hope, and this is just a bit of fun. Also, you have to give people the hope that it's ending at some point, because fatigue is real, people. We need to make sure that people know also what to expect with the agenda, that they know when they're going to have their breaks, especially if you're in a different time zone. We had people from Australia, we had people from Latin America. You yourself, Shona, were in the middle of the night attending this training. So it's very important to give people, and it's a bit of a joke, obviously, the hope, but also the hope that people learn, right? That you want to encourage people in a sense that this is a learning experience just as good as an in-person training is.
Really good, yeah. And I remember you, Anouk, from day one, you said that we're going to end and then we're all going to have a drink, whether it is tea, coffee, or wine together. And you kept mentioning it. And we had a wonderful party at the end where we actually, where we all chatted. And in another training, we all danced at the end. And yes, so that's hope. Hope for the ending. Yeah.
I was going to add that actually to what Pret was saying as well for the calming, that and Aya, you're so strong in this regard as well, that sometimes you need to exercise, right? You need to activate the body to actually calm. Because right now we're all working from home so long, and we're not connected to our usual supports, and then we sit in these really long meetings and we're actually wearing ourselves out. And remember this fun Italian dance that we did as one of the exercises in our training, and everybody was awake and everybody was paying attention. So that works really well.
Yeah, we have to engage the body. Yeah.
Definitely. And Anouk, that actually beautifully ties into the next section where we're going to talk a little bit more about the interactive parts of our training. So I'm going to start off with a small number game. So tell me, just everyone look at your Zoom chats, and you're going to quickly type in the first number that comes to your mind. How many times in a day do you look at your phone? First number, don't think. There you go, 500, 300. You have 27? Are you sure it's 27? That's very less. Okay, so, and then I have Krista. Yeah, amazing. So let's talk about the next number that you're going to put in. In 1 hour, how many times do you check in your work email? 1,000, Fred? That's all. Okay. Evita says 5, Krista 3. The numbers are in single digits, which is very interesting. And finally, can you tell me how much is your attention span, or you could say general attention span of a person? I can't see numbers. 20 minutes here. You are a very amazing person. 10 seconds, 30 minutes, seconds to minutes. We have quite the range there. Okay. So let me give you a little bit facts and figures to just start us off. An average person actually checks their phone 1,500 times in the entire day, and work emails is 30 times per hour. And I'm not even talking the entire day. It's per hour. Yes, Anouk, you gave the closest number. And then
30. That's the exact number.
Yeah, 30 times per day. That was for the working for an hour. Yeah, that is exact. It's amazing. And then finally, in terms of attention, we actually have lesser than attention span of a goldfish, which is 9 seconds. And that has decreased drastically. And this was a study before the pandemic. You can imagine what has happened during the pandemic in terms of how much that has been escalated, because you're completely doing everything on technology and you constantly have those like urge to check your phone or emails throughout the day. So like when you think about the kind of attention span that you have in order to engage your participants, essentially you have exactly 20 seconds for them to decide whether they're going to engage with your content or not. And if we're only going to keep visual and hearing content, you can just assume that people are going to turn off their video and happily start checking their emails and doing something else completely. So what is really the biggest challenge that I think we all faced, especially even while designing the training, was thinking about how do we keep the attention of our participants, and in that whole process, how do we increase the amount of ways that we engage our participants, even cognitively, physically. And that's why when you started talking about movements, doing these exercises, you're always involved. And I am going to turn it over to Ia to talk more about the superficial learning and the deep learning aspects of it.
And I just want to say that the reason that we also talked about doing this series is that I was talking to somebody from another national society of the Red Cross, and who said, I was doing a presentation, I couldn't see anybody, I had 100 participants, nobody asked a question, it was like talking to the void. So that's one very common experience. The other common experience is that people sign on to webinars, and then when you go into breakout rooms, you end up by sitting alone. I can see somebody nodding, you have tried that, because there's nobody else. So this is why we really need to engage people, and we need to engage them in deep learning, not only superficial learning. So if you think about superficial learning, which is what some of us learned in school, or if we learn to do a mental health and psychosocial assessment by reading a book or hearing a presentation, right? That's very different from sitting in front, being in the middle of a disaster. There's water everywhere. There's not a house. You have a few places where you can sit with people, and you need to do an assessment with them, and they're in distress. They've lost everything. That's a very different situation that you need to be prepared for. So the deep learning is not only that you can reproduce something by heart without necessarily understanding it. It's all about understanding, reflecting. It's all about knowing why you do what you do. And it's all about its application in practice, how it relates to other topics. And it's also very often related to motor skills. So we need to practice something. We need to sit in front of somebody who is in distress and know when do we respond, when they breathe in, when they breathe out, depending on what we feel in ourselves. To give you another example, you can read about tying a shoelace, right? You learn to do it by practicing, and that's a motor skill that's very difficult to lose again. You can always tie your shoelaces even in the dark if you're in a disaster. So we need to go to the deep learning, and to go to the deep learning, we have to engage participants, and this is when we use the breakout rooms and we use props to make it engaging. So I'm going to show you a few how we can bring the analog into the digital space. We're going to talk about props in role plays, and we're going to talk about other props. So to show our viewers what we mean by props, can I ask you to get your prop out and put it on? Get your prop, and when you're all ready, we will just count 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, buckle my shoe. There was a shoelace. Yeah. Okay. Put on the props. Yes, here we go. So what we do when we do the learning, fairly, we need your prop. Bring in the prop. Yeah. Great. Right. There you go. So when we do, great, Solvita, you look wonderful. So when we do the role plays, we use props to make them feel more real. We also change the names so that if you're somebody who is 47 years old, man lost his wife, you put that in the role play. when you come visit in the breakout rooms, as a facilitator, you are not on image. So you come in, they can see that you're there, but you can witness what is going on with people there with their props. And I could be interviewing, I'm the Red Cross person, or Chrissa could be interviewing Vele, who's somebody in distress, or Solvita, who's somebody who is very, very cold and homeless and needs support. So one thing is that we have more that we will show later, but we can also use different kinds of props, toy figures. So for example, I can give an instruction, and for people to remember, it can be that I say, oh, I like your hat, Shona. You can say that for the first 5 minutes in the discussion group, just cover the bare essentials. Then for the next 5 minutes, go as flower power and all overboard as you can. So you have 10 minutes to do the role play or to do the exercise. First, you just cover the bare essentials, and then you go all in with laces and frills. Or I can say, for instance, I can use figures, and I can say, when you answer this question, I want you to be, to challenge yourself. So I want you to challenge yourself. So this is somebody who will challenge. Or I can say, give me the very safe answer to this question. What is something that you know is really safe and sound? And I can use another of my toy figures from home to say, whenever I raise this very strict lady with this very strict queen, this is when I want you to keep quiet so that we can move on. I can use other figures. I can use, for instance, I say, I want you to, or I suggest, like the French say, that when you go into the role play, first of all, decide it's a role play on psychological first aid, who needs support and who will be the supporter. And then if you have an observer, and who will be observing. So decide on that first. So it's a reminder for people to, this is what they're going to do. We can use many other props. We can use Lego bricks different ways. People may have Lego bricks, but we can use them without having the bricks. There are many ways you can do that. And we have written a manual for you that you can read more ideas in. And I'm going to ask Shona to help me here. Because we're also going to talk about how we divide people into groups and pairs. And one thing we use in training is to have a memo game. This is an ICRC memo game with objects made from prisoners. You can't use that, but this is where people would go and pick a brick, and then they would find the person who has the exact same brick. This is how we make pairs, so that people are paired randomly, because very often in trainings, people tend to go with the persons that they already know. When training online, we can use breakout rooms, but we can also do like Shona is showing. Shona, would you take over?
Yeah, so over here we had a number of post-its for everyone to populate the name. So this was also one of the exercises where it was individual, so people familiarize themselves with the technology. So you populated your name, and then once you did that, we actually unlocked this part and deleted it. So you had to find your associated fruit. So if you were a pineapple, you're going to find your pineapple buddy pair. And that's how we tried to make this more interactive and people engaging with Mural, which is an online collaborative platform, and taking advantage of the various technologies that we had in this space. Also, additionally, like you can see my hat, it's actually a video filter. So you can also like think about what are the different video filters or Zoom backgrounds. If you're using another technology, what are the additional things that you can add, which could be visual or in terms of sound. Oh, there you go. And it has the background. So just think about engaging more than one senses. It's not only visual, you can have sound. So we had a bell during the entire training where we kept ringing it at any time we had to come back as a group. And Anu, can you talk a little bit about, I see female 18 Red Cross volunteer, you've changed your Zoom name. Can you talk a little bit about the role play and what were you thinking while designing the role plays?
Yeah, I just did that because it just reminded me of when we were doing the exercises and when we put people in breakout rooms, if people didn't use a lot of props or sometimes in an actual training, you would give people a little note with some background information and people would disclose that information in the role plays that they do. It's a little harder to find that basic information when you're in a digital environment. So we found it essential that people write down some basic essentials in their screen name and that they don't keep all the information to themselves, because that makes the role play quite hard on the people who's playing the helper, basically, in the psychosocial scenarios.
Also, actually added to that, I remember you really putting in these things together about creating rules for group engagement and also doing the community engagement and piece of it. So can you talk a little bit about that? And I can probably share screens to show what we had done previously, just to get an idea of how community engagement and accountability might look like.
Right, this is how there were different parts, I think, that connect to engagement and accountability. And this is partially where we ask people to make the rules of the training themselves. And we don't tell people what to do, but we create the rules as a group. So we have some rules of engagement, as you can see here. But I also remember, for instance, I'm not sure if you have that, or the secret box indeed, where people could leave some messages that they want to share more in private about things that they didn't like, or personal issues that they may encounter. But I also remember, I'm not sure if that's part of this mural board, but it's the rules of, no, not the rules, the roles that we gave people that we normally do in the training as well. Yes, the group tasks, exactly. And some of this was easier to do than others because we do this live in the training as well. This is Ea's creation most of all. The Wonder Wall, where we ask people to write down ideas about things that they would like to engage. Energy. Oh, can you go back, Shona, to that? Sorry, the Wonder Wall. Yeah, exactly. The energizer and the calming exercises and the recap. And we give people roles. So every day somebody else was in charge of those exercises, and especially the energizers and the calming exercise. It was super fun to share that responsibility. We normally would have also the village chief, so keep order in the, and that we found quite challenging in a digital environment. So not all of it translates directly.
It's amazing. Ia, can you tell us a little bit about the pluses on the suggestions part of it?
So what we want to do is we want to be sure that we continuously adapt to the needs of participants, and that is much easier when you are when you're not online, when you're in the room with people. But we can still do the same exercise in a training. But we do the pluses so that every day, at the end of the day, when people have their body talk time, they fill in the pluses, what's been good, what are good things, and then the minuses, or we can phrase them as suggestions. So they want longer breaks, for instance. They want a little break after each role play. They want long, you can see they really wanted more time. And one thing you need to do is constantly adapt. So every morning, this was done last point in the evening. So every morning, the Anouk and I, or the other facilitator and I, will go over them so that people know that we take any complaint or need serious. And we are mindful that next time we plan a training, we really need to have longer breaks. We can't just do 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes in the evening. You need 10 minutes an hour, and then you need a good lunch break. Otherwise, you will have people checking emails, and we don't want that to happen during the training because they need to be engaged. So that's community and engagement in practice, because when we are in the field, we preach. We want there to be a complaint box. There should be complaint mechanisms everywhere. So let's practice what we preach.
That is amazing. Thank you, Ia. And I want to hear from all of you, because you were involved in our trainings in terms of role plays and experience with having engaged with these different systems of community engagement. Can you talk a little bit about that? And Leah, do you mind starting us off on that conversation?
sorry, the pronunciation of my name is so an issue. Yeah, of course. I enjoyed the role plays a lot. However, sometimes it was a bit boring if you were waiting to be the person to be seen by others.
Yeah.
Whereas normally you could see what other people are doing, and in a digital environment, of course, you're in the breakout room, you can't. So that sometimes took a bit longer than expected, which was also a good reflection afterwards. So I think this, especially the reflection afterwards and sharing this, also helped to realize like, hey, maybe this is how it is in real life as well. What I really enjoyed were the buddy talks actually, and then thinking with your body, like what are the pluses and what are the suggestions that we have. And as Aya was saying, then having them return to you in the next morning with the summary of how we're gonna react upon these suggestions was very helpful. I appreciated that a lot.
Perfect. Thank you, Leah. And do we have any volunteers? So Rita, you want to share a little?
About that PSS training we had in October, right? This was my first online training ever. So it was quite challenging in terms of using the Zoom and sometimes to keep up with some tasks. But I agree about that body talk. It was very, very positive. And when you know that in the morning you will have that talk and then at the evening, and it was very nice. And to see how other person felt about the day. And yeah, it was like a very, very interesting and useful experience. And I felt like there was a big support from the organizers as well. That was important.
That is perfect. Thank you. It seems like a lot of you really like the buddy talks. Can you talk a little bit more like about the structure of the buddy talks? What did you guys talk about?
Krista.
We talked about our job and our plans, what we want to do with our volunteers, but also about our families. What family we have, if we have children or not, all of this, and it was very nice. Also, I liked very much the small talk that I said before, because I met people that have been here we have been in the same camps in different periods, and it was very interesting, very nice.
So maybe also we can ask Anouk, could you say a bit about the buddy talk structure and why we use it?
Yes, well, Aya, you're very much behind the structure of these talks, but we tried to adapt them in all kinds of situations, but mostly in emergency situations. And this is we were talking about a PSS in emergencies training. So we felt it was important people start using this. It's a way of setting up a peer support system. And if you let people practice that a little bit, they experience it themselves, they find it all the more important to implement it in their own programs. So we had the before, during, and after exercises where we had some prompting questions to stimulate people, like what could you talk about in your buddy talk before starting your shift or your emergency mission? What do you check with each other? Have you slept well? Have you eaten well? Have you managed to take care of yourself? Are you ready for the day? Are you ready to go into this emergency situation? And then during would be a checkup with your buddy to see if they're still doing well, if they need a side-by-side talk perhaps, or if they need water, if they need very practical supports. And then after, making sure you're ready to wind down and go home, and that you're not still processing what just happened, because sometimes PSS and emergency assignments can be quite stressful or can be quite, they can stay with you for a long time and might prohibit you to sleep well at night or just to take care of your family. So yeah, that's kind of structure.
Perfect. Thank you, Anouk. Pred, you were in the field for quite a while and you'll have implemented a lot of these systems in your national society. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how, while conducting the training, you brought MHPSS into the conversation and designing the curriculum itself?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again?
I said you were in the field recently, and you have implemented the buddy systems and few systems that were talked about during the PSSI training. Can you talk a little bit about that and how we integrate MHPSS in the online module?
Yes, actually, first I learned a lot during our PSSIE training that we conducted online, and I I'm always saying to our volunteers about the importance of buddy system, the like the idea of the buddy system that we had during our training, and all of them are having a little conversation whenever before we start of our activities on the ground. And of course, right after the activity, we have a sort of like operational debriefing where we can talk, um, in a group, you know. And it's really hard, actually, frankly said, to integrate these activities because of, let's say, in our culture, it's not that quite acceptable to have this kind of kind of conversation. You know, our people, our volunteers are always set their mind to, okay, we go out to the field, and what we want is just to help others, and they almost forget themselves, you know. But of course, as we go through, as we implement MHPSS, we want also to walk the talk. So we implemented it within our group. Like, whenever we start, we have to have a sort of small talk with our team, and of course, right after the activity, we have our operational debriefing.
Great.
Amazing. So Ian, Anoop, both of you actually, I think the last kind of wrapping up question.
Mine was just a little fun because I just noticed, because Fred, I think, is very late where you are, and I saw your eyes dropping a little earlier. So I was just want to check on my buddy if you're doing well, actually.
Fred, how are you?
Thanks to my coffee.
Awesome. Self-care is definitely a very important part because as a humanitarian organization, we've been working in the field, we come across that strenuous and vulnerable circumstances. We have to also take care of ourselves to be in that field and be able to contribute to the best of our capabilities. So again, just taking it back a bit, in terms of designing online trainings, Ia and Anoop, both of you, tell us what is your secret sauce of keeping the participants engaged? And just thinking about the maybe 3 main things that come up for you in terms of takeaways.
I would say, if I go first, Anoop, because I see that you're thinking, that making not going too long on one single topic, short presentations, exercises, that's one thing. And then making a mixture between individual reflection and group and the other plenary sessions that we are doing, ensuring that we don't use the system that you also often use in trainings where you have to do, you have a long flip chart and then everybody lists everything on the flip chart, everything that has been already said, so that we really keep it short. And we used 1 minute reports. So people had to give 1 minute or 2 minute reports, which was very efficient. And that would be really some of the key things. And Anoop, what do you think?
I think similar to that, but maybe in terms of preparation and doing the training, being detail oriented, I think more so than you'd have to be in person. You can be a bit more flexible in person and be well prepared. But secondly, also learning by trial and error and not being afraid of making mistakes, as we just discussed as well, that people feel if they're on camera and if they're being recorded, they feel like they're exposed more. So encourage people to make mistakes because it is a huge part of learning. And the secret sauce would have to be keeping it fun and lively, because that's the only way you can keep engaged for a longer time in an online environment or in real life for that matter.
That is so true, Anoop. I mean, you already mentioned the dance that we had, and then having these engagements where we really talked, and at the end we had this really amazing party to kind of make people feel like you're in the same space at the best of our capabilities. But and you touched upon a very important point there in terms of preparation, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But you know, planning a very detailed oriented or a methodical way to approach that, because we have to have all the material ready going online, because everything needs to be either uploaded and it needs to be technically available. So planning that really requires more time as opposed to having a training in person, and the amount of flexibility that it provides us might be a little lesser, but we can definitely play around with different tools and things that we have. And over to Ia for closing.
So thank you very much for being with us today. It's been really inspiring to hear you. It's kind of fun to be with you in the same room again, and it brings so many wonderful memories and warm memories. And we were very happy that you wanted to share thoughts and inspiration with us for how to do online trainings and how it has been to be in online trainings and the outcomes of it. And thanks to Shona, thanks to Anouk, thanks to Evita, Solvita, Krissa, Fred, and Virle. It's been a pleasure. Bye for now.